For a video game to be considered great, it has to withstand the test of time. It's one thing to impress audiences with some new gimmick, but will gamers be interested years down the line? One game that has definitely proven itself throughout the years is the Resident Evil HD Remaster, originally released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2002. One of the best qualities of the Resident Evil HD Remaster is the overall atmosphere. Great games have distinct atmosphere that pull you out of reality and into their world. It's the HD Remaster's combination of graphics and sound that has yet to be topped in any other Resident Evil game. Because Resident Evil HD Remaster has fixed camera angles, the developers were able to curate each shot to maximize that feeling of tension. Veteran players may take some of these well-crafted frames for granted, but the newbies will cautiously move out of fear of what lurks just off screen. And I can go on and on about the Resident Evil HD Remaster's atmosphere. Just the sound of footsteps switching from hard floors to carpet fills my head with more joy than it should. There's the random flashes of thunder, groans from zombies unseen, or just the eerie silence. But atmosphere is something that needs to be experienced. If you've never played this game and can't get a hold of it, take the time to watch a long play of this game without commentary so you can absorb all the sights and the sounds of this game. Next is the Resident Evil HD Remaster's incredible setting, the Spencer Mansion. Locations of great video games are often iconic, from Metal Gear Solid's Shadow Moses or Halo's Rings. Players would not return if the setting was not appealing, but also functional and full of things to do. Think about the original release of No Man's Sky. The game was filled with gorgeous scenery, but the worlds were largely empty. But the Spencer Mansion is both full of content and gorgeous scenery that helps build the atmosphere. One of Resident Evil HD Remaster's most incredible feats is how the Spencer Mansion is both big enough to keep players guessing, but small enough where it doesn't feel hopeless. To keep players from giving up, more areas of the mansion are unlocked as players progress through the game. So despite all the cryptic puzzles, the task remains manageable. Looking at the map of the Spencer Mansion, the developers really use the space efficiently. There is a logic behind the layout, making Resident Evil HD Remaster's 3-floored mansion seem bigger than it really is. It will be confusing for players' first couple playthroughs, but in time, players will pick up on all the shortcuts and interconnecting hallways. But a chilling atmosphere in an ingenious setting means nothing if gamers just play it once and then never touch it again. Great games need to have replay value, which the Resident Evil HD Remaster has. First, we have the two separate campaigns for Jill and Chris, and each one of those characters have multiple endings. But to be fair, all the endings in both the campaigns are similar. So these alone might not motivate players to return to the Spencer Mansion. The core replay value for Resident Evil HD Remaster is in the several different modes and challenge runs you can complete. True Survivor mode is Resident Evil HD Remaster's ultimate test. The item boxes are not linked, meaning players will have to meticulously plan on what items they take with them and what items they store if they hope to conquer this mode. Resident Evil HD Remaster also has an invisible enemy mode, which is pretty self-explanatory. Then there's the one dangerous zombie mode, where a fast-running zombie is strapped with grenades and he's stalking you throughout the entire mansion. One shot on this zombie will cause him to explode, resulting in a game over. And you thought Mr. X was bad. Each one of these game modes will push expert players. And even if Resident Evil HD Remaster's official modes don't do it for you, fans have been creating challenge runs since the initial release. There are damageless runs, no save playthroughs, and even runs where you can only use the knife. Try killing this sucker with just the knife. Yeah, good luck. Not only are the challenge runs fun, but Resident Evil HD Remaster is easy to pick up and play. The combat isn't super in-depth, there's no crazy combos you have to pull off, and you don't really even need to aim. You mostly just run around. Being able to skillfully dodge zombies will take some time, meaning Resident Evil HD Remaster takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. But a game can only be as good as its enemies, and Resident Evil HD Remaster has great enemies. The bulk of the game is populated by zombies, and zombies aren't just swarming the player in every single room. They're expertly scattered throughout the mansion in places that heighten danger and tension. In fact, it's rare to have a room with more than like 4 zombies. The zombies are usually in the middle of some narrow hallway, forcing players to either fight and use resources or flight and risk taking damage. And even if the players do take down the zombies, they reanimate into the much deadlier Crimson Heads after a certain amount of time. The addition of the Crimson Heads really makes you think twice before pulling out the guns. All of the enemies in the Resident Evil HD Remaster serves a distinct purpose. One of my favorite are the hunters that act as a late game threat. They punish those players that were a little more liberal with their heavier hitting weapons. While the Resident Evil HD Remaster's common enemies are fantastic, the bosses are one of the game's most underwhelming features. I mean, 2 of them you can run right past them. The rest are okay, but nothing special. For whatever reason, they decided to put the hardest boss, Plant 42, smack dab in the middle, but all the others shouldn't cause too many problems. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my girl Lisa. While she only makes a handful of appearances, she makes a lasting impact. And with so little information on her, the mystery only heightens her appeal. In order to bring down those baddies, you're going to need some weapons. But in Resident Evil HD Remaster, there's only 7 weapons in the base game, and 2 of them are exclusive to Jill's campaign. But this lack of weapons actually works in Resident Evil HD Remaster's favor. In so many games that have dozens of weapons, there are usually the clearly good and the bad weapons. Those lower tier weapons are usually forgotten about while players rush for the better ones. How many times have you played Resident Evil 4 and ended up with the exact same loadout? By only having a handful of weapons, Resident Evil HD Remaster ensures that each gun fulfills a role. From the pistol meant for basic enemies like dogs and zombies, to the shotguns meant for much stronger enemies like hunters and crimson heads. And then there's the Magnum, aka the boss melter. Adding any more weapons would just throw off Resident Evil HD Remaster's balance and create redundancy. Sometimes less is more. One quality of the Resident Evil HD Remaster that some might view as a negative but doesn't really matter is its lame story. There really isn't a single cutscene that really adds to the plot. You basically get trapped in a mansion, your partner goes missing, there's an obvious double cross, and yeah. But the Resident Evil series never touted itself as having this deep narrative, and that's okay. Not every game has to have a Metal Gear Solid level story. The lack of story allowed the developers to just focus on the gameplay, atmosphere, and setting. There have been talks of remaking the remake, and that's exciting. I trust Capcom after the Resident Evil 2 remake. While the Resident Evil HD Remaster holds up today, a reimagining of the Spencer Mansion could be great.